All right. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you're at. Nationally, we're just going to give people just like a minute to get in and settled, and then we'll start kind of our podcast conversation around AI and registered apprenticeship. Okay. Um, so we'll start basically with introductions. I just wanted to welcome everybody for joining today that is signing on with us. For taking the time to be here. And maybe if you joined us yesterday, thank you for attending uh, the session yesterday with Apprenti. And we're excited today to kind of talk about AI and registered apprenticeship, what's going on. And I'm wanting to introduce myself first. My name is Bree Durham. I'm the general manager of training operations here at Apprenti. Kind of responsible for thinking about how we grow apprenticeship programs, what is AI doing right now, and figuring out kind of strategies for how Apprenti's tackling it. And on the call today is Carla Johnson, and I'll let her introduce herself. She runs some really awesome programs with NC State and the AI Academy. So, Carla, if you want to introduce yourself to the group, I'd love to.
Oh, hello,
Love.
everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Carla Johnson. I am a professor of AI and STEM education at NC State and also executive director of the AI Academy. And really excited to be a part of this discussion today about AI apprenticeships. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
awesome. Um, Great. So there's been a lot of talk, and I think we get some of these questions all the time. I think between me and Carla in different meetings and in different forums, and so I think the goal today is to talk about some of these questions, sort of conversationally with you guys listening in. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat if there's things that you're curious about as we're discussing things. And I think one of the first questions that we wanted to tackle, and I think people ask us all the time, and we'll do our best to answer, is how do we build an AI ready workforce fast enough to matter? Um, what do you think, Carla? I obviously have some thoughts, but I think you guys are leading in this space right now.
Yeah, well, it's a really critical question and one that a lot of people are trying to figure out the answer to.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective, I think the most important strategy here is to build a system that grounds learning in real work. Apprenticeship
Hmm.
programs, I think, are the gold standard in this area. So,
Hmm.
the traditional college degree programs are slow and they miss that important link to the workplace. So, at the AI Academy, we launched the AI Academy at NC State in March of 2020. At that time,
Hmm.
I believe there were about 70,000 AI related jobs listed on LinkedIn. Today, that number's grown tenfold to maybe close to a million. So
Hmm.
our program is a combination of 40 weeks of related training and instruction, also known as coursework, and it's combined with on-the-job training and mentoring with our employer partners that we have across the U.S. So
Hmm.
our program is live and virtual delivery with after-hour coursework meeting time. So we're really flexible as far as making sure that working professionals can participate. And then we have
Hmm.
evidence-based curriculum and instruction. So to date, we've reached about 3,000 people who have gained industry recognized credentials. But we're going to need many more programs like this to build the
Yeah.
AI ready workforce to capacity, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that the kind of incumbent worker model that you guys have has been really, really interesting to watch sort of unfold over time. And I also think some of your mentorship and how you came up with some strategies around mentorship, since AI is so fastly evolving, is something where you guys have some like kind of unique solutions to that are in your program. And I think I think we'll probably talk about that later, but I think Apprenti's approach is that we kind of respond to our employer partners. And I think we work with their people and their subject matter experts on the front line, like day in and day out, to identify needs and how AI is evolving over time. I think job descriptions right now in different enterprise companies we work with are changing so fast that HR doesn't even have new iterations of certain jobs and what they're looking like. So it's really interesting for us to sort of be kind of mapping this in real time. And I think this is where I think apprenticeship plays a kind of a cool role, because we are competency based and we are, nimble, and programs like yours at the college too can kind of respond to these sort of growing needs in real time to keep up pace, which I think is super, super important. Um, I think this interesting thing I've been seeing is that sometimes it's almost like a mental shift at companies too, more than it is some of the training and the skills. It's like giving the people the ability to actually, like, once they're trained, like through programs like yours, how do you like empower those people to go out and do the good work and find those unique solutions to stay competitive. And so I think building internal capacity is key, and not depending on vendors, AI vendors, and kind of sort of like just AI literacy kind of all over the board. I think it's about really having a strategy about how do you build a legacy workforce strategy where you're building in that internal capacity with programs like AI Associate, which I think is pretty unique. So, yeah, I guess one of the things another question that we had is how do we know which jobs AI will be disrupting versus the ones it will transform? I think this is the whole question of, like, is AI going to take my job? We get all the time. What do you think about that, Carla?
hmm Well, I think a lot of people are really scared. And the truth of the matter is, there really is going to be change that happens, and we're already seeing a lot of that. But I like
Yeah.
to think about this more in terms of what the jobs will be automated more and made more efficient by the use of, integrating AI rather than disrupting. And I think
Yeah.
the article that I just read the other day predicted that about 30 to 70% of tasks will get automated based on the use of, AI and transforming
Hmm.
roles. But this will focus mostly, I think, on jobs that have more repetitive tasks. So think
Hmm.
about like data entry or simple content generation. I think a lot of us have used ChatGPT to make headshots or whatever different kinds of things we want to do.
Yeah.
Universities are using various versions of ChatGPT and chatbots to automate a lot of the process of engaging with potential students and applicants. So thinking about
Hmm.
like automating that support process for the application as well as helping them with enrollment. But I think more importantly, it's really helping to, raise the game on being able to have these early warning systems so that students will, be able to have these interventions prior to, attrition. So large language models are especially strong at pattern recognition in text, images, and structured workflows. So I think we'll see more of that integrated into the workplace. But in terms of
Hmm.
transformation, really, AI will serve as an able assistant, is the way I like to think about it,
Hmm.
to
That's a good way to put
assist
it.
people like even doctors in making diagnoses, but they will not actually replace the care that is given in the aspect of medicine and
Yep.
education. AI is helping to individualize learning where we have all these intelligent tutors, as well as, what they're saying in a lot of things I'm reading now is that it's not going to necessarily replace a college instructor, but it may be that you'll use AI more to get the actual introduction of the content where the teaching part is going to be really more opened up to, problem-based group work with students. So I think just to sum it up, AI will enable humans to devote more time to the creative aspects of work.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
rather than doing those tedious things that some of us go crazy with on the work, in the workplace, it's really going to enable people to be more creative and innovative and have less time devoted to routine tasks.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like shifting people to think with AI and kind of like alongside AI and be kind of, you know, kind of like almost an engineering mind around how you interact with AI and what that approach is for students. Just universally, will be kind of changing over time. And I think that is sort of the great skill tech. Be a lifelong learner in emerging technology, and how do you sort of implement that in your practice at work is always sort of like an interesting kind of like historical like tech waves. You kind of see that kind of progression. People that kind of stay ahead are the ones that are able to sort of be a systems thinker. How do I integrate this new technology? And it's interesting. I kind of approach it the sort of the same way. I think the distinction matters enormously because like disruption and transformation are two different things. There's a huge gap around the need of like people to be those system thinkers. Where like I think that yes, we're going to see a disruption in what our jobs look like moving forward, but I don't think it's going to take people's jobs. I think there'll be some shifting. And it's how you prepare yourself and your company for those shifts. And I think it's important to think about what kind of training incumbent workers need. And that's why I think programs like yours are so interesting, to be able to kind of keep like companies competitive and incumbent worker sort of trained properly. I've been looking at it like kind of like AI tasks are there's stuff that they're rapidly substituting. Pattern recognition, like you said, structured data, generating first drafts on clear outputs, large volumes of content, summarizing it, like routine classifications, those types of things. And then there's stuff that AI is like, I think augmenting that I'm seeing like the human still needs to be in the picture. And it's like, how do you become that human in the loop is what I think we talk about a lot in sort of AI circles. And so judgment calls with incomplete or ambiguous information still going to exist. This is basically a computer solving math problems in a sense. It's like root analysis. It's going to try to give you the best possible answers to whatever solution you're trying to solve. But at the end of the day, you're the creative mind behind what's trying to be accomplished. And I don't think that's going away. And I think there's a lot of emotional intelligence and IQ that humans bring to the table that we'll still need to have somebody in the driver's seat. And then I think like there's definitely a lot of jobs that AI is currently can't touch. Like you're like physicians are going to be like with AI are using all of this data for like I've seen it play out where like they're doing that patient scripting or kind of that the chart notes and stuff like that. That's saving them a lot of time so they can be more interactive with the humans and not staring at a computer screen while you're at a doctor's office trying to talk to them, right? Like that's great. So I think to your point, really looking at where AI is and what it's doing in your occupations or for your company, and like how do you supplement training so people can really pick up and be nimble and responsive to what your company needs are to stay competitive are pretty important. Um, so I think that's like it's an interesting thing to kind of watch in real time right now. I think it's kind of fun from a workforce development perspective. I think another question that we get asked all the time is how do you measure whether AI training is actually working as intended? How do you kind of approach that, Carla?
Oh, well, for us, it's a very continuous cycle of evaluation. And so we've
Yeah.
embedded external evaluation of our program that is ongoing, and it examines all aspects of our curriculum implementation, our OTJ, on the job training, and as
Hmm.
well as the participant and employer outcomes of the process. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what we're doing if it's not going to be aligned with what the employer needs and the workforce needs, and also the
Yeah.
participants if they're gaining the competencies that they need. So
Hmm.
we track competency attainment using a checklist for each course. So we have mentors that work one-on-one with individuals that are in the program on the job. And so
Hmm.
they are tracking the progress of participants to their attainment of the competencies. But then we also use formative assessment weekly in our workshops that we have participants in for about 4 hours a week. So we have them, continuously engage in activities that gives us the opportunity to determine if they've demonstrated their understanding of the competencies and the concepts that we're
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
But, as I mentioned, the employer satisfaction, and then also just continuously monitoring the program. One of the things that we are also doing is engaged in that continuous improvement loop while we're delivering the program. So we're always looking at adjustments that we need to do to make things even better. So that's the
Hmm.
we started as a program, funded by the Department of Labor, and we built the program with industry partners. We asked them, what is it that you need people to be able to do? And what is the best way to actually deliver this? And how much time should people spend learning what they need to learn. And so everything has been designed and implemented with the employer and the job in mind. So that seemed to work pretty well for us.
That's great. And do you find yourself like having to make tweaks like even now because AI is rapidly changing and sort of the needs. Do you find yourself kind of getting that feedback instantaneously with your employer stakeholders even today?
Absolutely. And part of our program, the coursework are more like nuts and bolts. And the nuts and bolts
Yeah.
haven't changed that much. But then when we get into our upper level, we have 4 courses. When we get into the AI course and the machine learning course, we're changing the content of those courses continuously. Like more than even in between each iteration of the course, but on the fly really to make sure that we're aligned and incorporating the latest things that are important for people working in this area to know.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think it's interesting, like working and looking at with different companies and like looking at kind of the challenges they have. Like there's a lot of AI literacy that's been invested in at a lot of different companies but I think there's also an interesting struggle with like having the right people to be able to sort of implement and kind of project manage those projects to make sure that like the AI training is working, so to speak. And it's really cool because you bring a very technical sort of real sort of with your AI associate role kind of aspect of what, how to bring all of the different data, into organize it properly so that AI can use it and really, create that like really seamless workflow and come up with those really creative solutions. I think one of the other things that we're finding is you need sort of an AI project manager, which is what we're currently developing. It's kind of sort of somebody that kind of sits down and looks at the landscape from different departments and says, okay, we need to pull in this stakeholder. We need to pull in cybersecurity. We need to pull in these people to think about certain things and aspects of whatever the work, like, work is that like thing you're trying to solve, I guess, and then helping sort of steward that all along and then layering that in with some change management for some of those employees that are worried about if AI is going to take their job so that they can kind of be along for that journey, understand that process and kind of say like, okay, this is going to be okay. I feel trained. I feel like this person's kind of like this AI thing is like an assistant. There's maybe some twinning involved where, they get to see kind of AI in action, sort of improve their job efficacy and things like that. And so I think having different programs like this that help sort of anchor, people's foundational training in AI and then those champions that are internal to the company that help kind of push the needle forward is so important to like answering the bigger question if AI like training is effective because a lot of it is kind of allowing people to also like be able to be in environments where they can test this stuff and be in sandboxes where they can test this and get creative too. Which I think is kind of important as well to, you can train people, but if you don't give them the like, I don't know, freedom to experiment with AI, then you're not doing a whole lot, right?
True. Very
So I
true.
don't know if you see that, like, I don't know if you see that struggle with some of your students where there is sort of like kind of at the leadership level, some struggle on like, how do we let people have some of the reins with, but put some guardrails on it. But we do see that tension, I think, a little bit when we're talking with employers and how they're sort of internalizing AI right now.
Mhm. At least for people that are in our program, we do an orientation for the mentors each time that there's a new cohort that comes in. And so
Mm,
we go through with the mentors the different types of activities that we would love for them to have people involved in. And it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of need. Like
yeah.
you can have them job shadow, but we don't want them doing that the whole time. Like we want them arm in arm with you working on projects and doing things within the company. And so I think that's helpful because then they have a better picture of kind of what would be the best things to help people be able to apply and learn what they're learning, in the coursework.
Yeah, and then you actually have alumni that sort of step in and help too if like there isn't kind of company capacity or maybe this is their first AI person. Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that's a really cool part of your program that I don't think gets highlighted enough.
Oh, so we have alumni that volunteer to be mentors. So a lot
Hmm.
well, I won't say a lot, but I'd say 20% of the people that participate in our program are from smaller companies and organizations that may not have AI experts in the company in-house to serve as
Right.
a mentor. So we bring in virtual mentors. Most have been alumni, some are not. Some are just like the
Mhm.
lead person at like Lexmark. And they serve as mentors to the people that are in the program, and they meet with them weekly virtually and talk with them about the things they're doing and about how they would actually use those within the workplace. And so it's been really, really great. I've not had anyone that has been assigned a virtual mentor say this is a waste of my time. Like they all enjoy it and they all want it. So it's great.
Yeah, because it is kind of like you need to have people that are sort of in the AI world bounce ideas, AI ideas off of. And if you're kind of in your own silo at a company, it can kind of probably feel, right, sort of
Mhm.
isolating. And I think the cool thing about registered apprenticeship too is it's kind of a cohort style, like and that's, for you and how Apprenti runs our programs, we do this cohort style. And so those students get to know each other. They may be working in different companies or they may be working for the same company, but they have sort of like this camaraderie of like learned knowledge together that they can then take into the workplace and on the job, and they can kind of like sort of iterate on some of the different things they're learning and how that may look in real time on the job, which I think is kind of fantastic. And why I think apprenticeship and these like this type of training that you have at the college is such like a match made in heaven for this time, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because you can be responsive to what competencies and needs are of the company, but then also kind of keep anchoring that educational piece and moving that around as in real time, with all those things you talked about.
Mhm.
um so I guess one of the things is like what makes the AI associate apprenticeship and apprenti training programs different from other training options that are out there? Because we did talk about this before our call, and like there's so much out there right now. And if anybody like likes to scroll through Facebook or anything right now, you're probably getting hit with like every AI training program on the market. And so, like Carla, from your standpoint, like what makes AI associate and what you've built at AI Academy compelling, I think, and stand out, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's a great lead in. I think it kind of continues from the conversation that we're having about the mentors. So, and you are right, there are a lot of free options even available in the
Yeah.
marketplace, MOOCs, everything you can think of. And so why would you pay for a program, or why would you do something that's more rigorous and intensive? Like, why would you do that when you could just do, a MOOC and learn what you need to learn? Well, the challenge
Hmm.
is most of the time you don't learn exactly what you need to learn because it's
Hmm.
really absent of that real world connection and on the job application. So, one of the things I think is really important is that the people that are in the AI Academy, they spend 8 hours a week, or I'm sorry, 4 hours a week in group work, working in teams, doing things with partners in the class. So they're really
Hmm.
getting some deep learning experiences. But the AI Academy was designed as an innovative project funded through a grant. So this wasn't your typical academic program established at NC State, and it's still not folded into an academic program in a department where people can charge tuition for it and make it traditional like everything else we know that doesn't work really
Hmm.
well. So those are all things that I'm proud of. It makes it a little bit
Hmm.
harder in some ways, but
Yeah.
it's way better, way better. So the biggest
Yeah.
distinction, I think, is, we have an evidence-based approach that we use. So we integrate the research on workplace and adult learning to make sure that our program's designed to make sure that people gain the knowledge and the skills that they need to gain. And that's not from sitting and reviewing a MOOC. Our program is a flipped classroom model, so participants learn from our AI expert faculty at NC State in seminars
Hmm.
first, and then they apply those in real time in our 4 hours of workshops each week, so 2 hours, 2 nights a week, and they choose which nights they want to come for the different options. But more importantly, I think, is our alignment with industry employer, our network, which ensures that our on-the-job training experiences and mentoring align perfectly, or at least as close as we could get, and reinforce the content that they're learning in the coursework. And there's been years and years of research that shows that the more opportunities that you have to apply your learning while you're learning it and doing things with it versus then just memorizing or reading or reviewing something, the deeper conceptual understanding that's developed. So we have meaningful learning, it's lasting content and knowledge and skills that people gain, and they're ready to go into the workforce, and they're already doing the work alongside their colleagues in the OTJ and through the mentored learning experiences. So we're really different. And, that's sometimes cause for pause for people that are interested in the programs. They're like, gosh, that's just a lot of hours that we have to commit to, 8 hours a week. It is. But if you think about
Mhm.
other similar training programs, you're going to invest that much time or more, even at, a community college or whatever. So those are some things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about registered apprenticeship and sort of even this incumbent worker model. It's a great blend of like this rigorous kind of related technical instruction that's really anchored in employer voice and what they're seeing, which I think is so important for how rapidly this is changing. And then that OJT piece is such a great thing for like adult learners because we're constantly like, why does this matter? And why do I need to spend my time doing this program? And I think people should have a critical eye about those things when they're making a choice as to what kind of training programs they want to pursue. And I think it's really cool to kind of see how you guys have really developed something that I think is, that people can take as an adult and, in the workforce and kind of stay on top of that curve. I know that there's like I said, there's a ton of micro credentials out there in the AI space. And we had this kind of conversation around like, what are employers valuing right now? And it's like you can spend money on these micro credentials sometimes that are around AI, but then like does that actually do anything for your resume? And it's like you don't want people to spend money on some skills that they may learn, but then they put it on their resume and it doesn't. I think the cool thing about registered apprenticeship and what NC and our kind of our partnership is that they get a journeyman card as an AI associate. Then they get a couple credentials from you too, Carla. And can you speak about those a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah, they received two certificates from us. Data scientist is the first one, and they receive that halfway through the program when they've completed the first two courses. And then at the end of the program, when they complete the final two courses, they receive one that's called AI Associate.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool because then you've got this great blend of like kind of validating from the Department of Labor. You've done the work, you've gone through this apprenticeship, you have the on the job training and the education, and then you go a step further with getting a couple credentials from the AI Academy and NC State, which I think is a really cool blend of like a kind of a ROI on the student investment, right? Like so
True.
yeah, I think that's important for people to understand is really be I think critical about like what AI programs you decide you want to invest in, ask a lot of good questions, see how that training is going to translate into the real world and on the job before you kind of commit to investing in something. And then ask, is that credential going to hold weight? I think, and is lasts the test of time. And so that's where I think this is kind of a fun conversation to have. Um, we are coming up sort of on our time right now, but I just wanted to hold some space for anybody in the audience that wanted to ask any questions that are listening in. Feel free to type it in the chat. That's kind of the wrap up of what we wanted to discuss and wrestle with a little bit today. But I know there's questions out there, and I hopefully tackled the most important ones. But wanted to give you guys a little bit of space to throw in any comments or questions if you had any right now before we give you guys some time back. So feel free to throw them in the chat while we're looking at them.
I do
If
have
you
one that came up,
perfect.
and that is from an employer perspective, how can we move faster?
That's a great question. I think building internal capacity is key and not depending on vendors. Um, I think external training sometimes without kind of a workforce development strategy has a shelf life. So, you want that durable capacity that you can keep iterating on. And I think getting those internal champions, those kind of AI associates or those technical people really geared up and fired up to like have those solutions is really important. Like as tools are adapting in live time. I think doing share ups company wide to show what AI is doing for your whole ecosystem of employees is important to show them. And then kind of like starting to have like a regular show and tell culture, even if it's like a 15-minute demo, and like show them some of the things that are happening. I think that's where like companies can start moving the needle. I think what happens is everybody gets stuck talking it at the top. Then there's some AI literacy at the bottom, and then everything kind of stagnates in the middle. And if you can get those creative juices and empower the middle people that are, trying to solve real world work problems, like I think that's the most important thing. I think. I don't know, Carla, what do you think on that?
Oh, well, I think you pointed to a lot of great ideas of things
Yeah.
to do. It's important to have early adopters in any kind of
Mhm.
change or reform. But I would caution, I don't know that you can do it faster. You can't make people learn these things any faster than probably what we're doing. We had that conversation. People in our program feel like it's very rigorous, and we go through what would normally be learned in a semester in 10 weeks. So we are accelerating, pushing the button on that. But for me, to get someone from zero, some background in computer science, to being an AI expert, it's going to take 40 weeks. So it's all about being thoughtful and planning ahead, and having the early
Yeah.
adopters or the champions, and then beginning to grow your team.
Yeah, I think the other thing too that I've found with certain companies I've worked with is that find those 10 to 15% of those people that are naturally curious that are already using AI, do an anonymous survey or something, or have some people volunteer like how they're sort of using AI, and then empower them with training like AI associate or AI project manager, depending on if they're technical, if they're more non-technical, and like empower those people to do the work. And that's where I'm seeing employers get ahead faster, is kind of identifying that initial pool, and then also, then thinking about that strategy for those early career college kids that may not have that gap training that they need, and what do they need to get to, to like kind of infuse your company with a lot of their energy, their tech skills, and then empower them, because they all are using AI whether they tell you or not. Like most of them are really good at it naturally. So hopefully that answered some questions for you guys today. So yeah. Emily, do we have any other questions before we sign off?
Um, One last one
Okay.
is on how are AI ethics being incorporated into AI training for the workforce? I know you
Great question.
kind of touched on it, but it's giving you an opportunity to dive deeper.
Yeah. Carla, do you want to tackle how you guys approach that first?
Oh, well, we don't do it as a standalone class. It's integrated into the fabric
Yeah.
of every aspect of every course that we teach, because it shouldn't be standalone. It should be across every aspect that you learn about AI, and helping people to be cognizant about it every day in everything they do.
Yeah, I think it's just like foundational training now from any sort of tech training provider that's out there, is just talking about the ethics. And I know we do a lot of case studies and think about it in different ways in our programming. Even if it's not like an AI centric occupation, all of our occupations we talk about it. I think it's an important thing to highlight and make sure that people understand the risks, and sort of the complications that can happen if you don't think about those things. And there's some great, I think, lessons learned out there that students can look at in real time and say like, oh yeah, like I need this, this is how I need to approach, kind of ethics and those types of things. So yeah, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate you all being on the call today. I think there's another podcast tomorrow if you guys want to join us for that. And I just really appreciate everybody being on the call today. And Carla, thank you so much for spending some time with us to talk a little bit about AI Associate, NC State, and AI Academy. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Agreed.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. And we will hope to see you tomorrow, where we'll be kind of continuing the conversation on AI into life sciences. So thank you again, Carla and Bree, for an absolutely
Yes.
fabulous session. See you guys
Awesome. Bye,
tomorrow.
guys.
Bye-bye.